My name is Tayana, and I'm delighted to welcome you to today's Creature Feature, Here Be Dragons. Creature Feature is an online series from the Harvard Art Museums that offers families a chance to discover magical creatures across the collections through close looking with museum staff. Creature Features are open to curious explorers of all ages. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that Harvard University is situated on the traditional and ancestral territory of the Massachusetts people, and we strive to honor this relationship. Today, we will get a chance to learn about dragons by looking at works of art that feature these mythical beasts. We will meet my friend Erica in just a minute, but first I want to take a moment to talk about the chat box, which you should be able to find at the bottom of your screen. Erica will ask you questions during her talk about what you see, think, or notice, and we will ask you to share your answers here in the chat box. You may have to ask an adult for help typing your answers, or you can just tell your answers to the person you're watching with. I will read these answers aloud as we go, and we'll also keep track of any questions you might have, so we can try to answer them at the end. As one final note, I'll just ask you to check that you're chatting to all panelists and attendees or everyone so we can all see your answers. You can adjust this by clicking the drop-down arrow in your chat box. Now I'm going to warmly welcome our friend Erica Lawton so we can start exploring together.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Erica, and I work in the Division of European and American Art at the Harvard Art Museums. And this is one of my favorite parts of my job, doing programs like this. Today, we're going to talk about some works of art in the collection that feature dragons. But before we begin, I'm curious to know, has anyone in the audience this morning visited the Harvard Art Museums in person before? Let us know in the chat. Has anyone been to the Harvard Art Museums?
We have a lot of yeses, affirmative answers.
Wonderful. I'm so glad. If you have been there recently, you might recognize this view of our building, which you'll see if you walk across Harvard Yard to enter through the Quincy Street side. And if you've visited us online before, or if anyone here is in their first visit, we're delighted to welcome you to our virtual museum today. When I began thinking about this topic, the phrase "here be dragons" immediately popped into my head. How many of you have heard this phrase before? Have you heard "here be dragons"? Let us know in the chat.
I have a lot of affirmative answers again, and someone says they've seen it on a map. Phrase, but not sure where.
Okay, perfect. So a lot of us are familiar with this phrase, and it might come from maps, but we're not sure. Perfect. So a lot of people have heard that it comes from medieval map makers who would write these words on regions of the world that were unknown to them. It turns out, though, that this isn't quite true. In fact, there's actually only one globe that we know of that has this phrase, the Hunt Lennox globe, which is now in the collection of the New York Public Library. This globe is actually only 5 inches tall, which is about the size of a big pen like this. So where did this phrase come from? It's true that in the past, cartographers or map makers would often place monsters and other imagined creatures on illustrated maps to mark parts of the world that they thought were dangerous or they just didn't know much about. In this early map, sailors are warned of shipwrecks. In addition to shipwrecks, map makers drew animals that they thought could be dangerous to people traveling in certain waters. If we zoom in here, we see a sea monster attacking an unlucky traveler. What real life animal does this sea monster look like to you? Let us know in the chat. Does this remind you of an animal that you know?
We have 2 votes for a crocodile, 3 votes.
Yeah, I agree. It looks a lot like a crocodile. Although I think the webbed feet are a little different from crocodiles I've seen. And some of these pictures probably came from stories that sailors told of creatures they encountered when far from home. They had never seen them before, so to them, they were sea monsters. These creatures might look a little like real animals, but had other special characteristics too, kind of like dragons. Stories about dragons have been told by different people and cultures around the world, with the earliest dragon legends dating back thousands of years. They are mythic creatures, like mermaids or unicorns, that have been brought to life through the imaginations of humans, whose values and experiences are reflected in these stories, which change and endure over time. Is there a dragon from a story or a movie or a show that you know of? Let us know in the chat. Does anyone know a dragon? Maybe from a movie or a fairy tale?
I know I first thought of Puff the Magic Dragon.
Oh, Puff the Magic Dragon, I know him.
We have Smog in the chat.
Oh, Smog, that's a good one. I always think of Toothless, the dragon from How to Train Your Dragon.
We have the dragon from the Merlin series, Dragonheart, a fairy tale in Polish about a dragon that lived in a cave under the king's castle in Krakow.
That's very specific. I love that.
Haku from Spirited Away, and then the Welsh flag.
Oh, wow. You know a lot of dragons. That's great. So, keeping the image of the dragons you know in mind, let's look at some artworks that feature dragons and pay attention to their physical characteristics. What might these dragons from different places and times have in common? As we saw in the sea monster on the map, mythical creatures are often made up of parts of real animals combined in a new way. So parts of them might look familiar, even in this ferocious battle-ready dragon from Germany. And even when they are doing magical things like breathing fire, as in this woodcut from roughly the same period, or flying out of a bowl, like in this Japanese print from 100 years later, or are being ridden by a fairy, like in this Indian drawing from an album of illustrations of the Hamzanama, an epic tale of adventures undertaken by the hero Hamza, or are blending in with the plants around them, as in this Persian drawing from the early 1500s. After looking at all of those examples, can you identify some common physical characteristics of dragons? Are they made up of parts of other real animals you know? Let us know in the chat.
Someone says they are all snaky.
Ooh, I love that. Yes, their body type looks like a snake, right?
Someone mentions lion claws, reptile body, and bat-like wings.
Oh, that's good.
Others are suggesting they look like alligators or crocodiles, lizards, and many are scaly as well.
Those are all great observations. Thank you. As you noticed, dragons might appear differently in images by different artists and cultures, but they often have some of the same physical features like scales, claws, sharp teeth. They sometimes look very snake-like or serpentine, as in this example. And sometimes they look reptilian, like a lizard with a long tail. They often have bird-like or bat-like features, especially wings, like in this illustration. And finally, dragons are often pictured with other fantastic beings, like this mythical woman called the Siren in this watercolor, which also features two cherubs pulling on the dragon's tail. Okay, so now that we know what dragons look like, let's explore their behavior, as shown in some of the most well-known stories and images featuring dragons from all over the world. Today, Tayana and I are speaking with you from the state of Massachusetts in the northeast of the United States, where the red star on this map is. Where are you joining from this morning? Can you point out your location on the map? Can you tell us in the chat where you're tuning in from?
Oh, we have some guests tuning in from very far away. We have Vietnam, South Africa, Washington, D.C., the Philippines, North Carolina, Alberta, Canada, China. Thank you so much for coming from so far away.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. It's so exciting that we have participants from so many different places this morning. As we go on and focus on specific pieces of artwork, I'll show more maps like this to help us locate where the objects were made. Look for the red star to see where the following stories and pictures featuring dragons come from. One of the most enduring legends featuring dragons is the story of the dragon slayer. The myth of a hero who must slay or defeat a great dragon was particularly popular in Northern Europe, where tales of dragon-slaying heroes have been told for thousands of years, and some of the earliest versions in Norse mythology. Now, let's travel back about 400 years ago to Germany to learn about one of the most famous dragon slayers of all time, Saint George. Take a moment to find the dragon here in this woodcut by the printmaker and Renaissance artist Albrecht Dürer. The dragon is pictured here in the bottom half of the picture. In this narrative print, the emphasis is clearly on the figure of Saint George, astride his mighty steed as he defeats the evil dragon with his spear. The story of Saint George and the dragon features a Christian warrior saint who must battle a dragon to save a city and rescue a princess from death and destruction. It's a classic tale of good versus evil, and the hero is a knight in shining armor. Do you see any clues here that let us know this is an evil, scary dragon that must be defeated? What in this image tells us this is an evil dragon? Let us know in the chat.
People are noticing bones and skulls.
Ooh, yes. Good eye. So some of you saw the skull and bones in the left-hand corner here, which might represent some of the dragon's victims. In some versions of this legend, the dragon represents illness or bad weather or an enemy of the people of the nearby town, which George must defeat. Do you see the innocent onlooker in the background watching as St. George saves the day? There are tales of dragon slayers from other regions too. Next, we are going to look at a Persian example from the Middle East in Iran. This watercolor and ink drawing is of a scene from the Shahnameh, or the Persian Book of Kings, by the poet Ferdowsi. This epic tale has several characters and tells of many adventures, but this drawing focuses on just one, Isfandiyar. Isfandiyar is a hero who must perform 7 great feats in order to save his 2 sisters, who are being held captive in a fortress. He shows his bravery by defeating 2 wolves, 2 lions, and a sorceress. But one of the fiercest obstacles is the dragon he must face. What clues do you see in this work that let us know this is a ferocious, evil dragon? What about this dragon might look scary? Let us know in the chat.
Someone noticed fire.
Ooh, yeah,
Someone's questioning if it's just the dragon's breath or smoke or bile.
good question. Yeah, I think this part here is what a lot of you are noticing. I think to me, it could be fire, but of course it's not the color we expect from fire, right? But I also see that the claws here and the teeth and even what looks like a horn on the top of the dragon's head are all pointed at our hero. So to me, he looks like he's scary and he's ready to attack. Although I would say Isfandiyar looks pretty calm as he prepares to defend himself there. Now, as you're probably thinking, not all dragons in the stories we know describe evil or scary dragons. Sometimes dragons befriend or even help humans. Especially in the Asian context, there are many dragons who are good or benevolent or even auspicious, which means they bring good fortune. The next dragon we'll see is a benevolent beast from the Korean peninsula. Korean potters learned the technique to make blue and white porcelain from the Chinese in the 1400s, but this jar wasn't made until a few hundred years later. Because the clay and cobalt used to produce these were in limited supply and expensive, these ceramics were made almost exclusively for the royal court in official kilns. This porcelain jar, painted with blue underglaze, depicts two dragons, one of which we can see on this side pursuing a flaming jewel. Can you see the jewel right here? Do you see the flames rippling off the jewel into the sky? The flaming jewel is a symbol borrowed from the Buddhist tradition in which it represents wisdom. Here, the dragon chasing the jewel symbolizes the pursuit of wisdom and immortality, which is the ability to live forever. In Korean mythology, the auspicious dragon is often shown in the clouds, mist, or waves, as the dragon rules the oceans, rivers, lakes, rains, and floods. Some ancient rituals ask the dragon to bring rain by rising from the dragon palace at the bottom of the sea up into the sky. What clues do you see here that let us know this is a friendly, auspicious dragon? Does this dragon look different to you than some of the other dragons we've seen so far? Let us know what you see in the chat.
You have immediate responses that this dragon is smiling.
Yes, thank you. Although this dragon has a lot of the same traits, like sharp teeth and claws, to my eye, this dragon is smiling and almost chasing after the jewel like a big puppy chasing a ball. Another tradition of the auspicious dragon exists in Japan, where this magical descending dragon was painted in ink, color, and gold on silk. This is one page of an album of 30 paintings created by Kano school painters. The album was probably put together for a wealthy or important member of Japanese society. As in the dragon on the Korean jar, this dragon is associated with water and is surrounded by mist, clouds, and waves. In East Asia, the dragon is a symbol of the yang, which is the male force of the universe, as opposed to the yin, or female force, which is represented by the phoenix. Dragons were also associated with the emperor, strength, and wisdom. What features of this dragon might make it seem like a wise old leader? Let us know in the chat. What's different about this dragon, maybe, than some of the other ones we've seen that make it look like a wise old dragon?
So last time we had people noticing smiles and eyelashes, and this time it's big eyebrows, bushy eyebrows, a beard, and calm eyes.
Perfect. You're really good at noticing things. Thank you for sharing your observations. Yeah, last time we saw the dragon had really beautiful eyelashes and a nice smile. This dragon has bushy eyebrows and a long mustache and whiskers. And to me, it suggests a wise old dragon who has learned much in his time. Our next object is from China. This is a gold bracelet featuring dragon heads. This is one of a pair of bracelets that were owned by Elizabeth Perkins Fogg, who donated the money used to establish the Fogg Art Museum at Harvard. Her husband, William Hayes Fogg, had a business that traded goods between the United States and China. And we know that the couple traveled there together in 1880. Maybe this was a souvenir brought home to remember the trip. The dragon and decorative details in the bracelet are made of very delicate gold and incorporate some of the dragon symbolism we saw in the Korean jar. The dragon heads come together here around this circular clasp. Does that remind you of the dragon chasing a jewel or maybe a pearl? There are similar pieces of jewelry just like this in the Palace Museum collection in Beijing. So that means these bracelets could have been made by the imperial court. They're currently on view in our second floor gallery, featuring East Asian painting and decorative arts. So be sure to check them out if you visit. Now, we've seen a variety of artworks in the Harvard Art Museum's collection featuring dragons, but there's another collection at the museums that contains something that's supposedly made of dragons, dragon's blood pigment. Dragon's blood is one of more than 2,500 pigments in the Forbes Pigment collection, which is the world's largest collection of historical pigments. If you've been to the Art Study Center on the museum's fourth floor and looked across the courtyard, you may have seen the collection, which is located in the Strauss Center for Conservation, which is an area of the museum that's not open to the public. There are some pigment samples in a display case in the reception area you're welcome to view, though. Pigments, like the ones shown in the jars here, are what give your crayons their color. They're the building blocks of paint and other materials artists use, and many of them come from natural sources. Now, what color would you guess dragon's blood pigment is? What color might dragon's blood pigment be? Let us know in the chat.
We have some guesses for dark red or black. One guess for a very vibrant red.
Okay.
And another for green or yellow.
Ooh. I mean, these are all good guesses because we've never seen it. And of course, we don't really know for sure what dragon's blood looks like. But the answer is red, as a lot of you suspected. Ancient folklore and medieval tales say that dragon's blood pigment comes from the blood shed from dragons during fights with elephants. As we know from our exploration of medieval maps, however, these legends are not always historically accurate. Even the pigment itself is elusive, as it's initially a bright shade of red, vibrant even, truly mimicking blood. But it fades really quickly when exposed to light and air, both in artwork and as raw pigment. That's why the samples you see here of raw dragon's blood pigment look more like an earthy brown color. In fact, dragon's blood pigment has a very earthly source. It comes from the resin of a specific palm tree. The rattan palm tree is native to Malaysia and Indonesia, and it produces most of the dragon's blood pigment available today. It's still used by artists and artisans in making violins and photo engravings. As we've seen this morning, dragons have inspired stories passed down in many cultures and traditions and have been the subject of artwork made by artists from around the world. These legends live on and are constantly reinvented as the dragon continues to spark our collective imagination today. I want to thank Tayana and all of you for joining me on this journey across time, media, and cultures to learn about dragons in the collections of the Harvard Art Museums. Thanks so much and have a great Saturday.
Yes, thank you, Erica, so much for this lovely talk. And I also have to thank you in front of everyone joining us. Erica has very generously put together a list of resources that I'll share with you all in email. So please be on the lookout for that if you're interested in more ways to explore dragons and other mythical beasts around Harvard. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.